Yeah.
Ashley's out and about. We see you, Ashley. Ashley's out somewhere eating somewhere. It looks like a
Show us your
restaurant.
faces, y'all.
Okay. I think this the video disabled where we can't see people, or is it?
And someone's in shadow. Hey, Dana. I
Dana.
see
What
you.
up, Dana?
I think they can hear
Corey.
us.
I
That's a
see
part
you
in the
guys.
background in Dana's.
Okay.
How you like
Ooh.
hiding?
Just so
Hey,
we know.
Corey.
I like the hair color, Ashley.
Oh, yes. Hey, Ashley.
I see someone and he's not got their name on the screen. What's your name with the purple headband?
Have y'all done Zoom shows? I know we probably should wait till we start talking to talk about this, but have you done any like Zoom stand up, Gina?
I refuse.
So that's two of the three of us.
I'm a purist, God damn it.
We were purists too.
Yeah, and then world with the shit.
I know, but
get my
luckily,
hit.
And I'm the one that doesn't have a TV show, so I got to keep doing jokes.
there you
on the
go.
computer.
Luckily, I had a TV show, so I didn't have to do the Zoom show.
Both of y'all were like, "Nah, I'm not getting in the game." I was like, "Look, I need these $20."
I refuse. I was like,
Hey, everyone! Thanks for joining us.
I didn't think it was going to go on for this long, man.
Okay, I think we'll give it like 30 more seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 minutes after, and there's still people coming in.
We got the
You guys
OG
could just
in the
keep
room.
doing what you're doing.
David
Yes.
Perdue, Atlanta vet, young gun. We
What
see you,
up,
David
David?
Perdue.
David Perdue. What's up,
Solid.
Bo? Don't crash your car, Bo.
That would be a bummer.
Do
Yes,
not kill
please.
yourself trying to learn about comedy writing.
We're pretty funny. You better pull over.
Wait, are we talking about stand-up comedy or comedy writing? Because
Just
one of
writing.
those I'm not as qualified for.
It's all
Listen.
comedy writing.
It's
Okay.
all writing.
I'll let Gina carry a lot of the comedy writing. Yeah, pardon you. What y'all, season 3 now? Season 4, somewhere there?
Fuck yeah.
Joe renewal breath. That's
Not renewal breath.
Look at that nice chair she got, Erin. Look at Gina's
Oh,
nice
yeah.
ass chair.
Oh,
That's how you know she a real writer. She got a headrest in the house.
Oh, listen. I've been sitting on this cute computer for 8 to 10 hours a day for the last year. So yeah.
All right, on that note, let's start. Let's begin. And
Right.
all the folks still rolling in, they'll just have to anyways,
We're
they'll
60 deep in this thing. Let's go.
Okay, everybody, welcome. I am your host. I'm Genevieve Bellmaker, and this is my little series I do on writing called Word Love. I've been doing with the New Yorican, and we are joined today by 3 really amazing comedians, comics, writers, stand-up. I mean, they have all kinds of labels you could put on them, but I would like to let them just briefly introduce themselves and say hello. Let's start with Erin Jackson. And just to give everyone a reminder, today we're talking about comedy writing. So just to answer Roy's question. So yeah, everybody, if you could introduce yourselves briefly to the audience, and we can get started.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I am Erin Jackson, stand-up comic. I guess I write the jokes and aspiring TV writer as well. Yeah, so that's who I am. Been doing it 17 years. And these 2 are some of my very, very favorites. So it's going to be fun.
Yay. I'm going to clap. I'm clapping for you, Erin.
And could you tell us about one recent thing that project or something you've worked on that people should definitely check out? I mean, you've done a lot. So
Oh, sure. Yes. If you haven't yet, check me out on season 2 of Tiffany Haddish Presents They Ready on Netflix that dropped in February. So please check that out. Hey, Robbie.
All right. Gina, are you ready to say hello?
Yes, I'm back. So, hey, I'm Gina Yashere. What's happening, people? I'm a stand-up comic. I'm from England, obviously. Been doing comedy 26 years now. So I was a comedian before I came to America. So yeah, comedian, that's been my mainstay. That's what I love to do. But I've recently sort of parlayed into other things. So I've been on the Daily Show with Roy. I've got stand-up specials. I recently co-created, exec producing and writing and acting on my new show, which is, well, it's not that new now. It's just been picked up for season 3, Bob Hearts Abishola on CBS. And my newest project, during the pandemic, I wrote a fucking book. Yeah, people. I wrote a memoir during the pandemic. So that's going to be out June 8th. So make sure you copy it. Well, it's out for pre-order right now. So copy it. It's a good book.
I ordered mine.
It is a good book. And I'm doing the audio. So don't ask. I'm doing the audio. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Okay. Roy, tell us a little bit. Say hello. Yeah.
Hello. My name is Roy. I've been a comedian since 1998. I don't feel like doing the math. I'll leave that. I'm a correspondent now on the Daily Show with Trevor Noah. In the last couple of years, I've sold a couple of sitcom. I did a sitcom pilot for Comedy Central called Jefferson County Probation, which I created, starred, wrote. That did not go because of the motherfucking merger with CBS Viacom, and then motherfucking COVID, and then the motherfucking change in the creative direction of the Viacom empire. But sold a script in the meantime to Fox that I'll be starring and producing with Dennis Leary about the National Guard. We can kind of talk about that a little bit later, but I've spent this time trying to write films and also prepping a third stand-up special in October. So that's kind of what I've been doing in the last year or so.
All right. Yay. So I want to kick this off. This is going to be a fairly free-flowing conversation. And I just wanted to kick this off with one overarching question, and you guys can take it and run with it as you will. What is comedy writing? I mean, what it is, when you think of a stand-up comedian, there's one label that we could take it and put it on any of the three of you, right? Like, it's one of the many things you do amazingly well. When you think about writing, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about it, and I found people don't think about stand-up comedians as being writers, but they certainly do write those jokes, don't they? You certainly do spend time working on the craft of it and then putting it out there and making it into something that's you can use in your profession. And so I just want to see, of any of that I said. I am not a comedy writer myself. So I would love it if you guys could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's the thing about doing stand-up comedy, because we get up on stage and we make it look so easy. It looks like we're just talking from the top of our heads, and it's just, and it's one of the least respected art forms, because it just sounds like a person getting up and just shooting the shit, and people are sitting in the audience going, I can do that. And they don't realize the hard work that goes behind it, the hours of writing, the constant testing out of the material, the constant molding. When I first come up with a piece of material, I'll chuck it out there, I'll do it, and then I will remember how it went, and then I'll go back and I'll keep polishing it. And it's like a rough diamond, and you spend a long time polishing it and polishing it and polishing it until it becomes the piece of bling that the rapper wants to wear. So that to me, that is what comedy. We are definitely comedy writers. There's a formula to it. There's a real skill to it. You can't just talk. You've got to do a setup. You've got to build up the story. You've got to be able to do those peaks and troughs. You've got to have a punchline and payoff. So yeah, people don't realize the skill set that goes into it.
Yeah, I think part of it is that comedy is also the one performance art form that everybody accidentally does from time to time. If you run your mouth long enough, you're going to say some funny shit. You're not going to accidentally be a good singer or a good actor or whatever. So there's this instant judgment and perception that what comedy is, because one time you were funny at fucking brunch. So it's kind of a weird thing where I still think that, to me, comedy as a whole is journalism to me. You either reporting on yourself or you're reporting on the world, and you're using a couple jokes to do it. To me, the big difference though is that in stand-up, people are willing to remix how they perceive the world to tune themselves to you. When you see Chris Rock versus when you see Kevin Hart versus when you see Tiffany Haddish versus when you see Wanda Sykes, you are in tune with how they deliver and how they present their information to you so that you can receive it. And it's funny because it's coming from them. Whereas I feel like scripted comedy writing, there is still a need for story structure, which I think sometimes I'll just say for myself, first off, that was a valuable lesson I had to learn about script writing, is that it ain't just about a bunch of jokes. You also have to tell a story, and you also get bonus points if you can make people feel something. So to me, I think that's just as important as making people laugh.
Absolutely.
And I think to piggyback off what Roy was just saying, like stand-up, I think is the one art form or the one form of writing where the audience gets to participate in the revision, right? Because, by the time you read a book, it's been through all the editors, right? But we're revising live. You get to decide in a way, you know what I mean? What it is that we're going to say, because if you're not laughing, if you're not receiving it, then we got to go back to the drawing board. And I think that's my favorite part, right? That's my favorite part of comedy is watching somebody start with something. In New York, you get a lot of folks coming in, even some, the greats will come in and they'll be working on a new special, a Saturday Night Live hosting, and you get to see the jokes the first time they tell them. And then you watch them mine it, like Gina said, and then you see it on TV and you're like, oh man, that process to me is beautiful to watch it, because we all have to go through it. Chris Rock has to do what an open micer has to do, because the joke is always starting from nowhere. Yeah. And that's why I think comedy writing, or comedy in general, is just beautiful.
Is there ever a question of something like, is it allowed to make fun of it? Is it, you might think of, you want to write about something, and then do you ever start to second guess yourself and think, no, that's too controversial, that's too far, it's not? Does that ever happen in the process?
Yeah, look, times are changing. There are jokes that I used to do that I cannot do now. There are jokes about people I say. But my thing has always been never to punch down, always to punch laterally or punch up. So, it's hard to punch down as a Black female lesbian immigrant, but but that has always been my thing. My type of comedy has never been to make people feel picked on or abused or uncomfortable in that way that they're feeling humiliated. If I pick on an audience member, I'm not picking on them because they're ugly or because they're fat. I wouldn't do that. But I make sure that when I'm laughing, we're laughing with you, not at you. And that's always been my thing, not to make people leave with a nasty feeling that they've been humiliated in front of other people. And but any subject to me, I think is worth doing, as long, it's all about context. It's all about context and about who, I've traveled to China and I will do jokes about Chinese people, but I make sure if I'm doing those jokes, here's how I test my material. If I can't do that material in a room full of the people that I'm talking about, then that material is wasted. Right. So if I'm going to do these jokes about Chinese people, I go to China and I do those jokes in China.
Yeah. Pull up then. Say it to my face, dog.
Yeah, exactly. So all these white comics that you can't say the N-word anymore. We can't, it's because we're out there. We're pushing boundaries. You ain't pushing no fucking boundaries because you're doing those jokes. Go to Compton, go to Bed-Stuy, go do those jokes in a room full of Black people. And if you come out of there alive, then okay, you can keep doing that material. But that's my thing.
And don't go to Bed-Stuy now. Go to Bed-Stuy 25 years ago.
That's true, yeah. Compton, Compton's still Black, right? Yeah, we go to Compton. Yeah, my thing is, listen, any comedian could do whatever material they want, as long as they are not denigrating other people and punching downwards. And if the people that they're talking about can laugh with them, then go ahead and do it. But yeah, don't be doing it to your little white frat friends and say, yeah, but you're not pushing any boundaries. So that's always been my thing.
The problem now, though, is that I believe that audiences are so in tune to be prepared to be offended, that being offended is a way to get attention sometimes, to the point that the levity of what the comedian is trying to say is sometimes lost because they said the word or the thing you didn't like. So the challenge now as a comic, all right, fine, if that's how the audience is going to be, fuck it. Then the challenge becomes, how do I navigate around your neurosis to get you to stay on board long enough to allow me to get to the point I'm trying to make? I mean, without walking through the joke, I've been working on a bit about the treatment of the families of mass shooters and the way that families are sometimes treated when their child shoots up wherever the hell. And it's ultimately a conversation about two-parent homes versus single-parent homes. The moment you say the word mass shooter, and it's you just, oh, are you defending these evil? I'm like, but that's the point I'm trying to make, is that you can't assume that every person who went crazy that they were failed by their parents. So I've had to figure out ways to literally not say the word mass shooting, just to get far enough into the joke to get you on board. And once I feel like you're on board with the premise, then we can go, any way we want to go. And I think, to me, that's the biggest challenge now, is that you can joke about whatever. It's how do you navigate the audience and the minefields? It's like playing Operation and you trying not to touch the sides of the shit to make the buzzer go off.
Do you guys feel like you have like extended cuts for your jokes? Because I know I do, depending on where I am, because you're editing on stage, right? Based on how the crowd is responding. Like, I'm like, I can't do that here, but if I go over here, I got 2 more minutes to that bit that these people will receive.
Yeah, I mean, it's about building. This is the skill of stand-up that people don't get. You're walking onto a stage in a room full of people who don't know who the hell you are, for the most part. And you've got to we're psychologists, because you've got to, within the first, as well for women, men, you got 2 to 3 minutes to do it. Women, we got like 30 seconds to get that audience to trust us and relax enough to go, all right, I'm willing to listen to what this person says and enjoy it. I'm going to open my, we've got to persuade a room full of strangers within 30 seconds to trust us, and that's one of the skills that people just don't realize that we're working with all the time. It's magical. And yeah, when you're doing material that people might not like, there's certain material that I do that I go, I know if I have a black audience, because we've got those shared experiences, I don't need to explain it. I can just go straight in. And then when I'm doing a white crowd, I gotta go, right, let me just explain it fast, get in there, so they don't get uncomfortable. Oh my God, she said white people. Is it about to be a Nation of Islam rally? So you've got to, it's a delicate balance.
Do you how can I put this, Gina? Do you ever on stage just go, fuck that, I'm not finna explain this shit to the people who don't?
Yeah,
it
took a long time.
Because it adds, I'm trying to work on a bit right now about the diaspora wars happening between Black folks, between Afro-Brits, Afro-Americans, and Afro-Caribbeans.
Yep.
Black people already know what the inner beef is. But to get into the backstory of why Black people don't want British actors playing, I don't know, I find it frustrating sometimes that I have to write to the audience that the material isn't always for. But I also got to respect the fact that if I'm in fucking Philadelphia and the audience is 60% white right now, do I just want this whole joke to fail because they're not brought up to speed? So that's the thing that I'm constantly, where it's different with scripted shit. Because when you write for TV, this is the world. Either you figure it out or fuck you. But with stand-up, it's, wait, let me explain. Okay, so there was Cynthia Erivo played Harriet Tubman, Black people was mad. And then this person and Black people. And it's a lot that you have to go through sometimes just to get to the real point.
Yeah, for that bit, you'd have to explain. You have to. Because as
but is that a conversation for white folks to even be in on?
Right, you want to be like earmuffs.
I think it's interesting. Because white people didn't know that we're not Black people are not a monolithic group. You know, they really have to be educated on this shit. They have to be educated on that. And we have to talk about this. This is stuff, you know, a lot of Black people might think is washing our dirty linen and whatnot, but it isn't. These are the things that we have. And it all stems from white supremacy. It all does. We were taught to hate each other. As an African immigrant kid growing up in England, it wasn't white kids I was getting into fights with at school who were abusing me. It was other Black kids. And these were struggles that I had and so I think we need to talk about this. And this is stuff that has to be, you know, we've covered it to a certain extent on Bob Hearts Abishola, where we've had, I got trolled like crazy.
Oh, season 1. Talk to him about season 1.
Season 1. Okay, so obviously, my show's Bob Hearts Abishola. So CBS, it's about, you know, a white guy who falls in love with his Nigerian nurse. And she works in a hospital with other Black people. So our main characters, I play her best friend Kemi. So my character's Nigerian. Abishola, main character, she's Nigerian. And our best friend who works at the hospital, who's also a nurse, Gloria, is African American. And I wrote a scene. I say we wrote a scene. I'm not taking all the blame, but I did write. I did introduce the subject. We wrote a scene where they're having a discussion and they're talking about the hierarchy of men, like what in order of Black men, what are best for Abishola. And the top of the list was Nigerian men, same tribe, Nigerian men, other tribe, other Africans, but not Tunisians. And it just went down the list. And it went white man and African-American man was at the bottom. Now, this was a scene that I wrote trying to highlight the disdain that different types of Black people have for each other. African American and Caribbean Black people, as a kid, I got called all kinds of names because they've been fed this information of Africans being animals, you know, Tarzan movies, us running around naked, trying to cook white people in pots. They've been fed this imagery and from white supremacy of what Africans were. And then Africans were fed an image of African Americans as being prostitutes and criminals and thieves. And this was the images that we had of each other. So when I wrote that scene, I was saying, these are some of the stupid beliefs that we've been fed as Africans, that African-American men would be below white men, below everybody else. And I made sure I wrote the scene that Gloria came back and said to her, what are you talking about? When you get stopped by the police, do you think your accent is going to save you? All they're going to be looking at is this. So it was a good argument and we made it a really good scene showing the stupidity of these beliefs and the hatred that exists between. But obviously, a bunch of people, there's a group of people, they call, what they called, ADOS, yeah? They're American descendants of slaves. They're a group of African Americans who do not like the Black British accents coming. They feel like we're stealing some of, and I understand, to a certain extent, I understand what they're saying, because African Americans have fought for years in this country to get the rights that you guys have. And then you see Black people coming from other places and experiencing some of the, you know, just getting some of the stuff that you guys fought.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. But what you don't understand, we've all had the same experience. Just because I'm coming from England doesn't mean we haven't had the same experience. The British slavers were just, in fact, the UK was the king of slavery. Americans are just the less skilled younger stepbrother of the Brits. So because you don't see it, because the Brits were smarter about their slavery in that they never did it in England. They did it on the Caribbean islands. So they hid it well. So if you'd gone to England in the 1800s and said, hey, you guys have got slaves, you guys, they'd have been like, really? Where? Because they hid it so well. And because of that, people don't realize that Black people who are coming from the Caribbean, from Haiti, from even from Africa, the colonization, they were just as terrible. We've had very similar experiences. And this is what people don't seem to understand. But anyway, my point is we did this thing to try and highlight the fact that Black people have been fed misinformation about each other for so long by white supremacy that has made us hate each other and made us fight amongst ourselves. And I wrote this scene, but what happened, people took that scene and edited it just to the bit where my character was going, Nigerians, Africans, white men, African-American men, and just edited it to that. and didn't show the entire scene where Gloria came back and went, "You're an idiot. You're stupid. We're all black together." But they didn't. They just edited that scene and put it out there. And then I got trolled like crazy. People turning up on my show, black people turning up on my live shows, telling me that I'm a racist, that I hate African Americans. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, like, watch the whole scene and then judge. And this is what we're up against when people are just hoping to be offended by something and then editing it to suit their narrative and then putting it out there. I was getting abuse from black people. I was getting abuse from black people. The white racists were shouting at me. So I had black people shouting at me on Twitter going, "Fuck off back to Africa, you fucking animal." Black people were saying this shit to me. And I tried to respond to it and say, hold on, people. You guys are slinging the same abuse that far-right racists are. Do you not see what they're trying to do? They're trying to separate us and you don't see what's happening. But yeah, a lot of that's a much bigger discussion to be had. But this is where the comedy writing, this is where we make you laugh, but we're trying to also at least educate and discuss things at the same time. And that's the joy of comedy, because people take medicine better with a pinch of sugar than if you just beat them in the face with it, you know?
Right. Bit by bit, maybe we become a little more educated about each other, hopefully. And so now we're almost to the part here where we can take some audience questions. And I just wanted to, before we did that, people were kind of typing some questions into the chat. If you guys want to have a look, or I can just pick a couple and start asking them. But I wanted to ask one question that, now this might sound kind of stupid, but you know, when you talk about comedy writing and you talk about being on stage, the word material, comedy material, really what you're talking about is what you've written in your head or on paper or in your notebook or whatever, right? What does that mean when you say the material of comedy that you use? Does that make sense? Is it just literally the jokes you've written down, or is it kind of like the whole experience, the material, you know, in what context you use it and to what audience and all these things that you mentioned that go into the process of your comedy writing? Like it seems like it's very much drawing on the environment and then feeding back into it and reflecting to itself and saying, look, this is what you are. And that seems like to me, comedy writing has always been the mysterious art form. And so, yeah, I wanted to ask just what, when you guys think about the material, do you think of it as a whole, all of these different things you have to put into it?
Go, Erin.
Okay, well, I guess in terms of when I hear, my material, I'm thinking of, material, I'm thinking of what it is that I'm bringing to the stage, right? The things that I'm going to say when I get on the stage. And there's so many ways to approach, what it is that you say, right? There are different, I actually was recently speaking to a class. There was a class at a university and I was a guest speaker on Zoom, but it was asking about, the students were asking, do you think it's an artist's duty to speak out on issues, to reflect the times? You know what I mean? And I said that I don't think that. I don't think it's their duty. And I say that because that is not everybody's gift, right? So some people are really good at contextualizing what's going on in the world, giving it back to you in a way that'll make you think, that can alter your opinions. Some people are good at reflecting common everyday things. And like the things that I write tend to focus back inward. I'm not necessarily hey, look at the world, have you ever noticed kind of comic. I'm this thing happened to me. This is how I perceived it. This is the crazy opinion that I have about it, or the very strong opinion I have about it. And maybe you share it, right? As opposed to, tackling issues in the world. There's some people that Roy is great at that. You look at a Chris Rock, they're great at that. That's not what I do. So I think to say it's someone's duty to do anything with their art or their gift, I just think it's the wrong way to look at what we do. But I don't even know if that answered the question, but that's just something I wanted to say.
No, it's true though, because people move, like when I first started doing comedy, I was like, I just want to be funny. I just want to be funny. I just want to entertain. I just want to be funny. As a comedian, the first port of call is to entertain. We are entertainers. Right. obviously, as I got older and angrier, my comedy became more political. But I'm not aiming to be political. I am, just by virtue of who I am, I'm a walking political statement. So just by talking about my experiences of things that have happened to me as I go through life, people see it as political. But I'm not. I'm just talking about experiences. So if somebody says something to me racist and I can make it funny, I'm going to make a routine about it. And yes, people and send it around the net and it will become a political thing. But for me, I've never considered myself a political comic. I've just considered myself a comedian, and I'm a storyteller. I tell stories. And yeah, sometimes it might be talking about pissing myself in a McDonald's in New York, or or facing up against a racist woman on a train. The stories vary,
Right.
And that really did happen. I pissed myself in a McDonald's.
Same thing. I'm like it occasionally.
Yeah.
That way.
Now, I just think it's just, for me, when you define material, I define material by the actual words that I'm using to convey the point. And sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's to get deeper into something. So whatever words are the ways to means to that, then that's what I consider material.
Okay. So we're going to take some audience questions. There are quite a few. I think one of them that's kind of interesting is it just says, when did you become so funny? But I think what they're trying to say is, did you have to work at becoming a comedy writer, or is it something you just naturally, your whole life, you've always been writing jokes and performing? And
very much like a class clown question.
Well, no, it's not a class clown question.
I was thinking it. No,
it's
but
like, did you start writing and in a very serious manner, like actually being a comedy writer? Was it something that you started out and like, I'm gonna do this, I gonna, just made a decision, or something just happened naturally over time, and then you realize, oh geez, I'm performing 4 nights a week and in the clubs in New York City, I guess I'm a comedian? I mean, because everybody has such a different path to how,
You have to try comedy. You have to believe you're funny. And if we're just talking about writing in the scripted sense, you have to believe that you have something worth putting on paper. I think the moment you start doing that is when you are that thing. We can talk about representation and selling the script and getting a manager, and that all comes later. But once you believe you are, then you are. And then it's a matter of just getting better. So that's just wash, rinse, repeat. Just write every day or perform as much as you can. Get you one of them nice chairs like Gina with the headrest and write every day.
I don't write like that.
But I also think, though, that I found that there was definitely a time, and it was after I started comedy, because like you said, Roy, I think you have to think you're funny to become a comedian or start doing stand-up. But there was definitely a time when I realized something clicked. And we talk about this all the time in stand-ups, like, finding your voice, but it's any kind of writing, right? So you, at some point, the ratio of like good jokes that you write to bad jokes improves for you, right? Because now you know how you write a joke, right? So now it's just find the funny thing. Now you're not trying to learn how to pace as much, or that, where the punchline goes or what it should kind of be. And I think there was definitely a time when I felt funnier. Like I felt like I'm writing better now. I found the groove. Now I've just got to find the things to talk about, but I kind of know how to do this now. And I would say that was a good, at least 6 or 7 years into doing stand-up, where finally I was like, oh, this is what funny is. Because you notice when you watch comics, like some comics are just funny and you laugh, and then some comics are murdering. And you're like, well, what's the difference? My funny is not that kind of funny, but it's that person knows who they are and they figured it out. And now they're just working it. And I think there's definitely a time when that clicks in for people, at least for me.
And there's different types of processes in comedian, because there's some comedians that you watch and they kill a show, and then you walk away and you kind of don't remember anything they've said, or you don't feel like you know anything about them. And I think when I first started out, I was kind of erring towards that, where I was just doing what I thought the audiences would find funny. And it was working. I was killing for years, but I didn't really find my voice till it got to a point where I was like, you know what? Because the first sort of 15 years of my stand-up career, I was not out. So there was a whole section of my life that I could not talk about. In a way, it helped me in that I had to think I couldn't just do the regular relationship stuff that other female comics might have been doing. So I had to work and do other material just to circumvent that stuff. So in a way, it helped me with my writing in that it made me do different stuff and think outside the box. But then in another way, it also constricted me because I was not completely free on stage to be my complete self. And then the day when I was like, fuck this. Why am I hiding myself? It's not made any difference to my career. I haven't got the big movie that I thought I would get by hiding myself. So fuck it. I'm just gonna. And the day that happened, which was not that long ago, I'm talking maybe 8 years ago, it felt like I'd really found my voice. My voice opened up because I got to the point where I don't give a shit. I've got nothing to hide. I say what I say. Take me or leave me, whatever. And I felt that even though at that point I've been doing comedy 15, 16 years at that point, and I was good and I was doing really well, but I got even better as my world just opened up. And I felt like when I opened myself up completely, more stuff started coming to me. The universe kind of it all clicked into place, you know. And
then, because that, to Gina's point, that kind of dovetails into what I believe, even on the scripted side, is that specific is broad. Instead of trying to write and create the thing that you think will be sold and that people want to make, you have to do the thing that's super unique on your heart and believe in that. And we talk about material. It's the same for a script as it is for a joke on stage, especially when you have people whispering. You know, I don't know if this question will ever come up, but a quick piece of advice is get negative people out of your life. Get anybody negative out of your life, including family members who don't believe in what you do. If the family member is someone you love and can't cut off, then talk to them less about what you do, so that they have less opportunities to be negative. Because that's the thing. Because I'm sure when Gina decided to go full immigrant, gay, Black woman, like there was somebody in the world was like, oh, what you doing with that material? You're not going to get Fallon with that material, you know. And
I had managers telling me for years, and family members telling me, don't, you'll lose your Black audience. I was getting a lot of that because I had a huge Black audience, especially in the UK, because I got famous on the Black circuit, and then broadened down. People going, you can't come out because Black people hate you. And I'm like, well, they've been following me for years and enjoying my comedy. So if I will lose a few, but I will gain more people who, and at least I'll know that the audience who stick with me are the people who enjoy what I do for what I do and don't give a shit about anything else and just want me to, be me. So it took a long time to get to that point, long time, but I'm glad I did.
We have a few people asking a bit about process. The discussion is really great so far, by the way. Everybody's really enjoying it, including me. So a few people are asking about process. Like, sort of, there's a question that's being repeated here that's like, basically, when do you know a joke is finished? When are you done writing the joke? And I mean,
never done. I've got jokes that I've been doing for a couple of years and then I think of another bit and go, oh shit, I've been doing it wrong for years. I've shot specials.
Yes.
And then the joke has got better after the special. And
I wish I didn't say that on TV. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
I got 10 minutes of my second special that should have been in the first special. Yeah. Because I just never stopped writing the joke.
Yeah.
What do you do? As a, how do you handle that? Is it just like,
now I got to find something else to tack that onto? Now I've got this. No, now I've got to, because that happens so many times when you find the perfect complementary bits to a bit you've already done. And you're like, well, I got to find a new way to get into this, but I'm not going to not say that, So I think, it's an ongoing conversation because I think I would say even if the subject matter is different, I feel like the themes kind of remain. My perspective on the world is still the same. So there's a way to get back to, that subject.
Like someone was asking in the chat about when do you give up on a joke? And I think there's certain jokes that they'll do. What I try to do as part of my writing process as I work out a new hour is to take every joke that I've written and perform it at the top of the show to know that the joke can stand alone, so that I know that the joke isn't dependent upon the momentum of a joke that preceded it, so that I know the joke is for real funny. But sometimes you'll do it at the top of the show and it's just all right. And okay, well, that joke's not ready, but it's probably a piece of something else. And you'll look up 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and dig in the crates. When that's another thing when you're writing, if you hit writer's block, go back and look at the stuff you've already written, the stuff you've already performed. I think in theory, it should work for scripted as well. And you'll find new ways to kind of Rubik's Cube stuff that you've already done. And then you go, I see where that fits. If you got 2 scripts, you go, this script sucks. But that scene and that character would work well over here with this new thing. And so you kind of start stripping stuff for parts. I have a bit about crack cocaine that does not go with anything that I talk about.
You're just waiting.
There's no segue, but I promise you one day.
But I also
out there.
Awesome, Roy. I think my mother is in this event, so I'm glad.
But I do feel like when I write, like I have definitely done that with bits where if there's a bit that I've been using as a closer for a while, like a stronger bit, I will open with it just to take it away from myself as a closer, as a crutch, right? So I definitely have done that. But I do think that there are jokes that are still perfectly fine for a set, even if they don't get the huge, because I feel like, again, there's pacing and there's peaks and valleys, right? So if you're doing an hour,
can't stay up here for that
there's
long.
got to be, right, it can't stay up there. People are going to be tired of laughing. You've got to give them some, some ups and some downs. So I think sometimes, I don't know if that would necessarily be, well, that's not my process, right? So we're talking about each other's process. Yeah. My process would be like, okay, that's okay. As long as it's still it's a solid joke. I don't think they all have to be at 10 necessarily, because sometimes it's just, I'm going to take it down for a little bit. I'm going to talk about something that's, and then we'll, you get it. You know what pacing means.
Yeah.
And so do you guys have like Roy, do you have a joke jar in your house? Like where are the jokes? Where do you keep things that you've written down? Is there a notebook? Do you guys have a problem finding a pen? I know I'm always, being organized as a writer is like pretty crucial to producing, right? And what you guys are describing sounds like very immersive, almost like a lifestyle. Not just, not just writing. It's like very taking pieces from what you've done before and putting it somewhere else, and kind of that it's always in mind. So yeah.
I'm Word documents for the long form verbiage of the joke. The notebooks I take to shows are just rundowns, which are essentially the order of the joke, the city, and the date. And so then that way, when it's time to come back to that market in a year, like a year from now, when I come back to New Brunswick, I'll go back to this book and go, okay, well, what the fuck did I talk about last year in New Brunswick? And what was the sequencing of the jokes? Oh, that joke doesn't work there anymore. Let's move it. So over the course of 2 weeks, I can just look through this book and remember, well, that joke didn't work well here, but it did well. It's like setting a lineup for sports, for lack of a better word. You know which players do well, who has the best chemistry or whatever. So I'm more listening to audio as a form of kind of free form writing, and then eventually I get back into Word and kind of play with some of the verbatimness of it. If it's a joke that's like the whole Afro-Brit diaspora war, that's a joke where you have to be word perfect on, because you're trying not to piss off 3 different continents in one fucking joke.
Yeah, like I did.
So but not every joke is like that. Some jokes, I think you just have loose mile markers. And for as long as you hit each point within the bit, it doesn't matter what the verbiage is that gets you to each mile marker. It just depends on the joke and how delicate you're trying to be.
Yeah, different people have different processes. When I first started doing stand-up, I had these notebooks and I'd write all my jokes out word for word. And after every show, I'd write the bullet points of the jokes in the order I did them, and then grade each show. So if I had a bad show, I'd draw a picture of a coffin. And I did that for the first, I did that for the first 6 years of my comedy. But then as I loosened up, I became, less rigid, because I used to memorize the bullet points in order. And then in my head, I go, right. And go for the bullet points in my head and do the jokes in order. But as I became looser, I became much freer with it. And so I stopped doing that so much. And I don't write my jokes word for word anymore. I might just write an idea. I'll go blah, blah, blah. And then I'll go on stage. And if I want to try out a new bit, I'll throw it in the middle. So I'll start with the strong stuff and then throw the new stuff in the middle. So they don't know that new stuff is coming. I'll do it with the same confidence and hope it works. And then if it does, great. I tend to record all my stuff. I like to audio record. I also like to video as well, because I like to watch my facial expressions and physicality as well. So I can match
even with new jokes.
Yeah, even with the new jokes I record, and then I'll listen to it back, and then I'll go, that part of it got a big laugh, great, I'll keep that. That didn't, get rid of that. And that's how but I don't tend to, I'm not that disciplined in that I'll sit in front and go, I've got to write 3 hours today. I've never written like that. It's just not my thing. It's all more organic. I'll just always have my phone with me. If I think of something, I'll scribble it in my note. So I've got notes and notes in my, and I date them. So I'll go new material, March 2019 or whatever. And then whenever I go to a city, I'll record it. Or I love to watch the video, because then I go back, if I'm going back there, I'll go through the video and go, right, I did that last year, did that. Maybe, and especially if I do stuff specific to that city, like if I go in and I walk around the area and I've made jokes about what I've noticed, then it's nice to come back with some of those observations and embellish them. So, but I've never been that disciplined. Even when I was writing my book, I never sat. I'd sit and write for 6 hours and then not touch it again for 3 weeks. And then go, oh, fuck, there's a deadline. And then I'd sit and then I'd write again for another 12 hours and then not touch it. So it was all, and then I'd go back over it and over it and over it and go through, read through it again and edit it as I went along. But I've never been like one of those people that just go, I can't, I've never been able to write like that. I'm disciplined.
Me either. And I think also I find that I do the same thing. I audio record everything, and I'll be going in between spots, listening to game tape on the subway. You know what I mean? Just trying to get it right for the 9:15 spot. But before I did stand up, my last job was in like marketing writing and marketing copy editing. And so I tend to write very concisely, and that doesn't always work. It works if I'm doing a late night set, right? Because I'm trimming all the fat. That's kind of what I like to do. I want it to be as lean as possible. But then when I'm in a club, like Gina says, I'm just throwing the new material out there and I'm putting it all out there. And then I'm, then I'll start to edit on the fly. But, that process of like when you're going to do something on TV and you have to give them the transcript and you've got it, that's where I shine. Cause I'm like, oh yeah. Cause I can now trim all the fat for real, get it tight. Like that's my, but yeah, I haven't written anything down like in terms of writing the text to a joke in a really long time.
And I thought I'd never need to. And really, I thought I'd never need to, because you do so many gigs that I know my jokes word for word, and I know exactly where the pauses are, where the power is, where the punchline is, how to build the setup. But then the pandemic changed that, because now I've done 4 shows in a year and I'm like, oh, fuck. Whereas before, I could get on stage with 100% confidence because I've been doing it every day. That muscle been working. And now I'm getting on stage rusty, but it's kind of added a different dimension. Because I'm rusty, I will play a little bit more and meander because I can't remember the shit. And because of that, I've been able to sort of create longer bits and play with stuff more because I'm meandering a little bit more.
It's fascinating, because I don't give a fuck about performance until the joke is locked, because my ass to be spending all night critiquing how I'm standing during this part of the joke, and then 2 weeks from now cut that part of the joke. So fuck that. Everything is whatever. And then once the joke is locked, then I go back, and this is kind of where acting class kind of helped me a little bit, where the performance, Gina, just motion to stillness. Like it's creating contrast within the material. So volume up, volume down, talk fast, talk slow, talk loud, talk soft.
Yeah.
The closer you are to the crowd for more emotional stuff versus being away from the crowd. And then I figured out now lately, and this is more from the Zoom shows, because I literally don't like looking into the webcam performing to people. I'll look off to the side. And so now on stage, if I'm talking to myself, if I look off to the side, it's understood that I'm not that I'm having an inner dialogue, and that's helped me performatively, son. So that's something I try to be conscious of.
And I would say just the benefit of having writers that you trust in your circle is like amazing. Cause I had to kind of craft a special during the pandemic, right? I had like 7 chances to get on stage before I taped the Netflix special, my very first one, right? So it was Roy and Gina were the people that I was calling. I was like making Roy be my audience. I'm like, you gotta listen to this bit. And you know what I mean? You have to have, when you don't have the outlet to do what you do because you write, because I don't write like this, right? I write on stage. You've got to have people that you trust to kind of bounce off of. And I think that's, there's no,
And I love helping other people with this. It's like I'll watch comedians and I'll go, oh, I've got a bit. Some comedians you feel you can go to and go, I got a tag for you. I love watching people's sets and going, oh, I could do what we could do. I love doing that. And so I will give tags to people, and I gladly accept tags from people as well. I've had a few comedians come up to me and go, no, that bit, you could add this. And I go, that is fine. And I'll add it and I'll text you afterwards and go, it was great. So I like that collaborative aspect of it. You can't do it with everybody because egos, but I like that. I like helping other comics out.
You ever written for other comedians and shit though? You ever had you ever written for other comedians or anything?
I have, yeah. When I started out, I used to write for I wrote for TV show. I wrote sketches and stand up and stuff, but I've never written for other live comics who, because I understand getting help when you're writing a TV show and writing, but for the live stand up, I feel like.
That's the whole point.
The whole point
is that you wrote it.
Stand up is going, I fucking made that up. Yeah. Or I talked about something that happened to me and I've turned it into this bit. So I can't imagine having people writing my stand up. But there are people that do. And I can understand when you're at that point in your career where you're so big and so famous and you've got to come up with hour specials every year.
Or you're the Oscars or whatever. That's different.
The pressure is crazy. The pressure is crazy to produce. So I understand that, but I've not reached that level yet.
I won't name the comedian. I won't name the comedian, but I was opening for a major headliner, and after a show, he came up to me and he goes, "I'll give you $1,500 for that joke," and it was a 2-minute joke. And this is at a time where I'm only making like $400 on the road. And you come up with a joke, motherfucker. You know how long it takes to come up with a good joke.
And it's not worth it. It's worth way more. You could do that for years.
I took the bread and I fucking hated myself for the next like 6-7 years for selling. And he didn't even perform the shit right. He bought it and then.
You should have been like Prince and took it back. You know how Prince writes you a song and then go remake it better.
That's true.
Tevin Campbell.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I got on a Prince shirt. Y'all can't see me. That's why okay, never mind.
Well, and you know what? It's better that you sold the joke than the fucker just stole it and did it anyway, which has happened to me.
That's true.
With various big name comedians. Russell Peters.
I was going to say Gina will name names.
I will name fucking names. Russell Peters. Yeah, who will watch your stuff rather than pay you for it. Just fucking steal it. Just steal it and use it on their specials and become multi-millionaires off it. And then deny it for years and then admit it 20 years later on a, what was it? Sway show. Go look it up. Anyway.
I'll ask you offline about that because
again.
I'll ask you offline about that because I want to know like what the if y'all have made peace. But we
no, we haven't. He blocked me. He blocked me on social media because I cursed him out. I made a video cursing him, telling him, look, when you're doing your material as a newer comic and you have people coming on your website and accusing you of stealing this person's material when it's the other way around, but because they're more famous than you, it's soul destroying as a comedian. And then to watch this person doing it on your material about your family, but just changing it to Indian family and then doing it on specials and becoming hugely famous of it while you're still struggling is fucking soul destroying. So I will never forgive that, especially as he promised to pay me afterwards and then didn't. So yeah, I will.
I'm sorry to hear that happened. And I
But
think
I'm not the only person he's done it to. Like I got a lot of messages from Canadian comics in my DM saying thank you, because he stole from us, but we couldn't go up against him because he's this huge superstar in Canada. But thank you. Like so many messages. That's the joy of not giving a fuck.
And it's a good kind of note to wrap up on too. And, you know, those kind of experiences, you know, sounds really difficult. How do you keep going? Like what motivates you to keep doing it and keep going and not, you know, despite the slings and arrows of the business?
You got to love what you do. You got to love it. If you're doing this for money or for fame, you're in the wrong business. You've got to love what you do. And I tell you what, lesson I only learned not that long ago was to keep focused on what I'm doing and enjoy the journey and stop comparing myself to other people. I used to be an engineer. I came from an engineering background. So I always thought like an engineer. When I was like, well, I do this for this amount of time, I get this qualified, I should get this. And you can't think like that in this industry, in this business. You can't. And I thought like that for a long time, and it would kill me when I saw people who I considered less qualified than me or less funny or just being elevated, because I'm like, I should be there because I've done this, and I'm this good. And I had to, you know, it was only in the last few years I had to step back and go, stop looking at other people, enjoy the fact that you're doing something for a living that you love doing, you're making a good living at it, stop comparing yourself, enjoy your journey, enjoy what you're doing and what you're achieving. And when I was able to let go of the comparing and the looking at other people's careers and being jealous of other people, I started to enjoy what I do a lot more, and I became better as a result. And I felt like the universe opened up for me. In the last few years, it always just come together because I've been a lot more positive. I invited more positive energy into what I do and just enjoyed it. So you just got to love what you do. You just got to love what you do and not compare yourself to others. That's my big piece of advice.
Yeah. If I could do something else, I would be doing it. But this is what I do, so I can't quit, because at this point, you get to a certain point in this industry where it's like, look, if I quit now, like, what if I quit the day before the big one, like the day before the thing, right?
And that's the thing, you never know when it's gonna hit.
Right.
You never know. No, I got a TV show off a fucking Google search. I'm not even making this shit up. Yeah. My TV show came because Chuck Lorre wanted to make a show with Nigerians, and he did a Google search. Nigerian female comics, they typed into Google. That's how they found me. You know, you think it's going to be that TV appearance or that. You never know where or when it's going to hit. So keep putting out good content. Keep doing what you do, loving what you do, putting out good stuff. It will come, you know.
Roy, we had a question from the audience that Roy wanted
that
to
was one. I just think Erin will like this one from David Perdue. Any advice for transitioning from stand-up to scripted writing? Any material you read or anything that performing on stage that's helped you write scripted material?
Yeah, I mean, the script that I wrote and sold came from a bit that I did on TV. I wrote a bit about me being petty and holding grudges, wrote a script, sold it to HBO Max, right? Like, I think as a comic, if you're going to write comedy, you're going to write comedy, you've got them. It's because if you're writing about you know what your voice is, especially Dave. If I'm talking to you, Dave, I'm looking at your square, but I don't know if it looks like that. But, I mean, absolutely. If you look at any even sitcom, remember when comedians got all the sitcoms like in the 90s and stuff like that, in the 80s and 90s, everybody's sitcom was their stand-up. Like if you listen to their stand-up, the scenarios of the episodes came straight from stuff they told on stage. You know what I mean? Bill Cosby, whatever, but does a joke. You see Bill Cosby stand up in the Cosby Show all the time, right? And so absolutely, mind what you've already written. The script that I'm working on now came from a real life experience. You know what I mean? Like, write what you know. Everybody says it because it's true.
Yeah, Bob Hearts Abishola, a lot of her stuff that's happening is straight out of my stand-up, straight out of my life. I'm not the main character, I'm the best friend, but I'm writing and I'm putting all my experiences into the show.
Gina, did you, and I know we got to wrap, but this part is very interesting to me. Do you feel like when you sell, all right, so I'll say some real shit real quick. So the probation show that I saw where I played a probation officer that's trying to make a difference in the system, that's based on when I was on probation when I was 19 for stealing jeans, right? That's the first script I sold. It did not go. And now that idea is essentially dead unless it gets whatever the fuck at Viacom down the road.
It's not dead.
Yeah.
Do you go, well, for now they everybody want to remake everything that's ever been done. So once we get past remake fever, then maybe we can circle back around to the shit. But for now, I'm gonna just do some other shit while y'all decide what to do. So whatever it is, it's in effigy, right? That idea was so fucking close to my heart that it took me a second to detach from the fact that it wasn't moving forward. And like that part of it, like when you write what you know and you write your soul, how much do you put the best and most meaningful thing? Because knowing what I know now, I would not have pitched my heart and soul project out the gate. I would have pitched some other shit that's funny and good and structured and fun and a decent story. But knowing what you know now, Gina, what would your advice be to somebody with that? Because that's,
see, it's hard though. You never know. Like I was pitching very similar stuff based on my family and background before I got this show. This show was a random, came out of left field. But the previous year, I'd written a spec of a story, basically a story based on my family life and based on my background. And I'd been pitching it and nobody knew what to do with it. And it never got picked up anywhere. And that was kind of heartbreaking because I'm like, this is not on TV anywhere. This is coming from a perspective you guys have never seen before. But they'd never seen it before because they didn't know what to do with it. You know, if they haven't seen it before, everybody's so risk averse, they didn't want to touch it. But then it was soul destroying, but I sat back and I just sat on it and just let it go and just carried on doing what I do and just waiting for the next opportunity. Maybe I'll rewrite it. Maybe, fashion, it's all cyclical. At the time, everybody was making shows about stand-up comics. And I had myself in there as a stand-up comic and it didn't get picked up. So I was like, all right, I'll take out the thing about me being a stand-up comic and then just concentrate on this. So I was remolding it and waiting for the right time to pitch it. This show came out of left field and I was like, okay, well then I can use some of what I was trying to sell before and slot it into this project. And that's basically what I did. That's basically what I did.
I will say my show didn't go either, but it became a tremendous writing sample that has opened up a lot of doors, right? So it's still serving me, even though, it's not getting made in its current form. Yeah.
But I would hold on to all that material because you can always, when the next opportunity comes, you can take elements of it and put it into the next one.
No, I ain't condone that shit, Gina. I'm going to just get real famous and I'm going to pull a Chappelle and then I'm going to let the streets get me my shit back.
Yeah.
But I got to do about 6-7 more. I got mine back.
I don't understand how all these rich comics don't just make their own shit. I don't understand it. Why are you waiting for the gatekeepers? I don't understand it. You're fucking rich. You can make your own TV show. I made 3 specials by myself when I had no money. Those specials, 2 of the 3 specials that you see on Netflix of mine, I made them myself because nobody was giving me specials. So I was like, well then, fuck you guys. I'm gonna make my own. And I got my credit cards and I booked a theater and I went and I'd hand out flyers begging people to come to my show and I booked my own camera crew and booked my own director and made my own fucking specials. 2 of them that are on Netflix now. And then I sold them. I sold them to Showtime. I sold them to NBC. And I own that property. So they lease them for 12 months and then they come back to me. So a special that I shot by myself in 2010 is still making me money to this day because I sold it to Showtime. And then after the 12 months, they gave it back to me. Then I resold it to Netflix. They have it for 12 months or whatever, then they'll give it back to me. And then I'm earning money off Sirius XM with them playing the audio of it. So every month I get a check. So my thing is another piece of advice. Don't wait for the gatekeepers to validate you. Make your own shit. Put your own content out there. Television's changing. You don't need these people to tell you that you can make TV anymore. You got phones and cameras that can do that shit, you know?
Thank you so much. That is such a good note to end on. So positive. And I know there are a lot of other questions, but I promise these guys who very kindly and generously gave more than an hour out of their Sunday to do this. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. The New Yorican appreciates it. And everybody in the audience you can see the comments. They're all really just, thank you so much. And
watch my show, people. Watch my show, Bob Hearts Abishola.
Yeah, check out.
Buy the book. It's a good book.
I put my email in the chat if there was a real question you actually want to.
Oh, same.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, but email. Don't DM me on none of this social shit. I don't be checking that shit often. Then you're gonna think I'm a hater.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And there is a recording of this. So for those of you who are asking, there's a recording. Yeah.
Sorry, Tammy Joe.
Hey, Tammy Joe.
I just sent a message to her that I meant to send to everybody.
I guess if they can't pull up the chat if people are driving, it's the RWJ show at Gmail. The RWJ show at Gmail.
Awesome. That's right.
And I'm at ej@erinjackson.net. EJ.
I'm easy. Gina at GinaYashere.com. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. All right. Thank you guys again so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
I hope this was helpful to you guys. Yeah, I hope it was helpful. And yeah, enjoy.
Thank you. Keep writing.
Keep writing. Never give up.
Never give up. Thank you. Thank you, Roy.